Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Bourgogne-Franche-Comté in France. As you can see, we're in eastern France here, along the border with Switzerland. You can see the Jura Mountains here, creating the border between the two countries. Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, kind of a mouthful, right? That's because it is the combination of two regions, the Bourgogne region and the Franche-Comté. The capital is Dijon, you can see right here. Besançon was the capital of Franche-Comté. Dijon, of course, famous for Dijon mustard, right? But the region is also very well known for its wine. It's France, right? But there's a lot of wine grown here. Wine grapes grown here. Wine crafted here. This area also has many rivers, as you can see throughout. But the main ones, the only really ones important to our history section is the Saône. You can see coming through there, the Saône River, and the Doubs River going through here, which wraps around the city of Besançon, creating. Well, you'll see it on Google Earth. I won't spoil the surprise. It's really beautiful, but there are many other rivers throughout. Now, if you're wondering, Borgonia, that's an interesting name. I've never heard of that. If you speak English like me, that's probably because you know this area by its English name, which you can see here is Burgundy. So in English, Borgonia is Burgundy. So I will be kind of using both names throughout, switching back and forth, depending on like what's more convenient for me, I guess, because in English we say Burgundy. This area also is home to some UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So let me grab my tablet real quick and we'll read about some of them. We may not look at a lot of them on Google Earth just because there are so many things to look at when we get to Google Earth. But maybe we'll see. But the first one you can see here is the Cistercian Abbey of Fontenay. Isn't that a pretty name, Fontenay? This stark Burgundian monastery was founded by Saint Bernard in 1119. With its church, cloister, refectory, sleeping quarters, bakery, and ironworks, it is an excellent illustration of the ideal of self-sufficiency as practiced by the earliest communities of Cistercian monks. Let's look at the pictures here. So yeah, I'm not a Christian, so I never really knew, or even like a Catholic, it's probably more prominent to Catholics, monasteries, things like that, but I never really knew the difference between different types of monasteries, or in this case an abbey. But I guess these Cistercians were all about self-sufficiency, basically creating their own little town, making all their own food and everything, all their own crafts, all their own clothes, I guess while studying the Bible, which is really interesting. And it's a really beautiful location, as you can see. Then we have another example. Oops, this one please. At Vézelay Church and Hill. It's Benedictine. Please. Thank you. Shortly after its foundation in the 9th century, the Benedictine Abbey of Vézelay acquired the relics of Saint Mary Magdalene, and since then it has been an important place of pilgrimage. Saint Bernard preached the Second Crusade there in 1146, and Richard the Lionhearted and Philip II Augustus met there to leave for the Third Crusade in 1190. With its sculpted capitals and portal, the Madeleine of Vézelay, a 12th century monastic church, is a masterpiece of Burgundian Romanesque art and architecture. So from what I understand, the Benedictines was all about simplicity. I think, if anyone knows better, correct me. But yeah, this is just a very stunning example of just good old French architecture. Like this looks like the back of Notre Dame, that kind of Gothic style. All these beautiful columns here. Doorway, the big, beautiful arch overhead. All intricate details in the carvings. Really, really beautiful. Look at all of these, all depicting various scenes from the Bible, I'm sure. But all very, like, daunting, right? It's very tall. These different rooms making it, like, you know, making you feel very small, right? And the building just seemed larger than life. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. It reminds me a lot of Notre Dame. Moving on, though, from church places to something a lot more modern. This one is called, oops, I'm still on the pictures. I was looking at the pictures. From the great salt works of Salins-les-Bains to the royal salt works of Arc-et-Senon, the production of open-pan salt. This one's kind of long, let's read it. The royal salt works of Arc-et-Senon, near Besançon, was built by Claude Nicolas Ledoux. Its construction began in 1775 during the reign of Louis XVI, was the first major achievement of industrial architecture, reflecting the ideal of progress of the Enlightenment. The vast semicircular complex was designed to permit a rational and hierarchical organization of work, and was to have been followed by the building of an ideal city, a project that was never realized. The great salt works of Salins-les-Bains was active for at least 1,200 years until stopping activity in 1962. From 1780 to 1895, its salt water traveled through 21 kilometers of wood pipes to the Royal Salt Works of Arc-et-Senon. It was built near the immense Chaux forest to ensure its supply of wood for fuel. The salt works of Ceylon shelters an underground gallery from the 13th century, including a hydraulic pump from the 19th century that still functions. The boiler house demonstrates the difficulty of the salt workers' labor to collect the white gold. Now, I was looking at the photos because they're not that great on this website. So I was comparing these photos to Google Earth, and Google Earth has a lot better photos. So it's an interesting little landscape. I love these columns, though. I don't think there's a good picture of them in here, though. That's unfortunate. But essentially, it was supposed to be a huge circular complex with the factory in the middle, and then all around were going to be homes, hospitals, schools, to create just this independent town that was in this big circle. And it was a great idea. Unfortunately, the French Revolution happened and it never got finished. But yeah, sorry for my tummy, pretty amazing what was built before it was stopped by the revolution. Now this is very interesting. The climat, terroir of Burgundy. The climats are precisely delimited vineyard parcels on the slopes of the Côte de Nuit and the Côte de Beaune south of the city of Dijon. They differ from one another due to specific natural conditions like geology and exposure, as well as vine types, and have been shaped by human cultivation. Over time, they came to be recognized by the wine they produce. This cultural landscape consists of two parts. Firstly, the vineyards and associated production units, including villages and the town of Beaune, which together represent the commercial dimension of the production system. The second part includes the historic center of Dijon, which embodies the political regulatory impetus that gave birth to the climat system. The site is an outstanding example of grape cultivation and wine production developed since the High Middle Ages. So let's take a look and see what they're talking about. First of all, that's Beaune. We'll take a look at that on Google Earth because it's the most beautiful little town. But it's essentially like a form of terraced farming. Maybe this is a good photo. Yeah, like, can you see? That's all the bricks, but this like sloping hills here. Essentially terraced farming. I don't know, that's the best way to describe it, I think. It's another good photo, I think. Just the way that they've grown these vines to craft their wine. And then the town of Dijon, which of course we'll look at on Google Earth. Lastly is this site, which we've talked about many times because it spreads throughout many countries. It's the prehistoric pile dwellings around the Alps, which this is the only photo of it. It's essentially, this is a reconstructed house of what it once looked like. And then these are all the sticks that were once supporting houses of ancient humans. Pretty neat, right? Let's read about it if you haven't heard this yet in another one of my videos. This serial property of 111 small individual sites encompasses the remains of prehistoric pile dwelling or stilt house settlements in and around the Alps, built from around 5000 to 500 BCE on the edges of lakes, rivers, or wetlands. Excavations, only conducted in some of the sites, have yielded evidence that provides insight into life in prehistoric times during the Neolithic and Bronze Age in Alpine Europe and the way communities interacted with their environment. 56 of the sites are located in Switzerland. The settlements are a unique group of exceptionally well-preserved and culturally rich archaeological sites, which constitutes one of the most important sources for the study of early agrarian societies in the region. Yes, those are our UNESCO sites. If there's a glare on the tablet, I'm sorry, I can't see it from my angle. I can only see it once I'm editing. So if there is a glare on the tablet screen, I'm sorry. But that kind of segs us right into history, doesn't it? Because, of course, this place has been inhabited by people for a very long time. But probably the first most important of these cultures would have been the Celts. And more specifically, the Gauls. G-A-U-L-S, the Gauls. What's now France today, the Romans refer to as Gaul, because that's where the Gauls lived. Julius Caesar set out to conquer Gaul. And in the year 52 BCE, he fought a huge battle against the big military leader of the Gauls, Vercingetorix, at the Battle of Alesia, which occurred somewhere around here or so. We'll look at it on Google Earth because there's a neat statue of Vercingetorix there. Very famous battle in which the Gauls lost and surrendered to Rome. And then Gaul was integrated into the Roman Empire after that. After the Western Roman Empire, after the Roman Empire split in two, West and East, this was the Western Roman Empire, it started to crumble and fall apart politically, and many other people groups in the area took advantage of that. And in the 4th century, the Germanic people, known as the Burgundians, took advantage and invaded, and they took that opportunity to establish the kingdom of Burgundy. In the 6th century, the Burgundians were conquered by the Franks, which just continued the kingdom essentially. Franks, of course, it's how we get the name France. France is named after the Frankish people. The most famous Frank king was Charlemagne. who was crowned the first Holy Roman Emperor in the year 800. I believe. I'm pretty sure. I didn't double check that. However, once he passed away, he had 3 sons who were claimants to his throne, and they fought a very brutal civil war until the year 843 when they signed the Treaty of Verdun, which split the kingdom in 3. And one of those lines crossed right through this region here. So the area was known as Burgundy because it was the kingdom of Burgundy, of course, conquered by the Franks, right? So it was split in 2 between 2 different rulers. So one side became the Duchy of Burgundy that was ruled by the Dukes of Burgundy. The other side became the County of Burgundy in what's now essentially like Germany, so to say. Like most of that kingdom is now Germany. That would eventually become incorporated into the Holy Roman Empire, in 1032. And that's when it kind of developed the name of the Free County, which is Franche-Comté in French. The Free County because while it was part of the empire, it was pretty semi-autonomous. Even after the Holy Roman Empire changed like places, so to say. It was ruled by Germans, Austrians, the Spanish at one point, due to marriage and things like that. It was never fully integrated into it. Like when the crown passed over to a Spanish king, it wasn't part of Spain. You know, it was part of the empire, but its own thing. It was the Free County. It just did what it did. In 1477, during the Burgundian War, which was a war between Burgundy and the Swiss Federation, 1477 Burgundian War, at the Battle of Nancy, the last Duke of Burgundy was killed without an heir. So, what's now France absorbed it, and it's been part of France ever since. How did the Free County become part of France? Well, in 1678, there was a war between France and the Dutch, the Franco-Dutch War, which at that time, the Netherlands, today was part of the Holy Roman Empire. I think it was part of Spain at that point, if I'm not mistaken. France had invaded the Free County a couple of times before this war, and they had invaded it during this war. And during that peace treaty, this land was granted to France, so officially part of France, and has been ever since. There's been a couple of hiccups. In 1814, it was invaded by the Austrians. This is during the tail end of the Napoleonic Wars, so it was like the Austrians and anti-Napoleon forces invading and occupying during the twilight of Napoleon's reign. And then, of course, during World War II, in 1940, the region was occupied by Nazi Germany, as was most of France at that time. Pretty much all of France at that time. Dijon did see some Allied bombing during that time. But yeah, it was liberated in 1944 by the Free French Army. And pretty much the only other history was how these were 2 regions, which actually went by a bunch of different names throughout history, a bunch of different lines drawn. I figured I wouldn't get into all that nitty-gritty because it changed names multiple times, changed borders multiple times, especially during Revolution and Napoleon times. Napoleon just redid everything in France. But it became what it is today on January 1st, 2016, when they combined the 2 regions into one big one. And finally, Burgundy was united for the first time since what? Let me see my notes. Since 843. Burgundy was finally put back together as Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. There were a lot of celebrities that were born in this region. Victor Hugo probably being the most famous. He was born in Besançon. He was the author of a few books you might have heard of, like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and Les Miserables. Also important to me would be the Lumiere brothers, whom we talked about when we did our video down here. We talked about Lyon, because that's where they worked out of. They invented film, as in like movie film. They pretty much invented movies as we know it today. And I love cinema, I love film, I love movies. So they're very important to me personally. Pretty much the only thing that I like nerding out more than geography is film and film history and film awards and stuff like that. Along that line, I think he was born in Besançon. Maybe he was. Nicéphore Niepce. He essentially invented photography as we know it today. The oldest preserved photograph that we have as a human species was taken by him. I think it was in Paris though, but I'll throw it up here. The oldest surviving photograph was taken by him with the technology that he developed. There's also some famous Louis. Louis Pasteur was born, I think over here somewhere. I can't see, I'm too far away from my map. But over here near the border, Louis Pasteur invented pasteurization, which is how we keep our milk free of any contaminants, so it's safe to drink. Louis Chevrolet was born here. Of course, the creator of Chevrolet cars and creating a dynasty of race car drivers. And Louis Vuitton, the fashion designer. I think everyone knows Louis Vuitton fashion today. Among many others. Those are just the ones I picked out of history. But the most important one to me is one of my brother-in-law's, he's my brother, my brother-in-law's very best friends was born in Besançon. He now lives in Canada, but he was born here. So in high school, my brother-in-law was my French TA. When I took French 1, he was the teaching assistant. He does not remember me, apparently. He has a terrible memory about things like that, but I remember him. He knew me before he met and married my sister. He was my French TA. That year, we had an exchange student at our school from France. And to get an easy A, he took French 1, and that's how he met my brother-in-law, and they became very good friends. My brother-in-law graduated that year. He was a senior. I was a sophomore. I was a freshman. No, I think I was a sophomore. I don't remember. Anyway, he graduated that year and cooked up a plan with his friend. He lied to his exchange program and convinced him that he was still in high school, that he hadn't graduated, and he managed to come to Besançon for 6 months and be a foreign exchange student there. So my brother-in-law did an extra 6 months of high school in France so that he could continue to hang out with his friend. So my brother-in-law lived here for 6 months, and I was asking him about it, and he said that's one of his biggest regrets was leaving, because his friend's family asked him to stay for a lot longer, and he was homesick, so he went home. But he says in hindsight, he wished that he had stayed in France for longer. I wonder how the visa would have worked out, a student visa would have worked out. But, yeah, he has lots of fun stories from high school. I won't tell them there, but he was pretty popular in this French high school, and he's telling me, like, yeah, they took smoke breaks between classes. It's so French. He took an English class, as per tradition, right? And found out that the English teacher there was teaching the students a slang word for, I won't say who, a slang word for a group of people that was a slur. And my brother-in-law had to tell her, like, hey, we don't say that in the United States anymore. That
It's really offensive. And the teacher was like, oh, I've been using that for years. I've been teaching my students that that's what you call people. Like, not the N-word, but a pretty offensive word in California, at least. But anyway, lots of fun stories of him going to high school there. So yeah, this place is pretty close to our hearts as a family, so I'm excited to talk about it, as you can tell. But anyway, we have so many places to look at on Google Earth. I feel like I'm going to forget some because I just found like a million places I want to show you guys. So if I do forget any, I'll leave them down in the comments so that you can go check them out on your own, since Google Earth is totally free on any computer or device, and you can look at it there. But hopefully I won't forget any. But why don't we find out? Let's hop over to the tablet and we will explore Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. Here we are in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté. There we are. And let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. Here is La Belle France. And you can see it just takes up this big eastern chunk here, like Switzerland. And if you're not quite sure where France is, here's Europe, Western Europe. You can see the Netherlands and Belgium up there. Down here is Spain. Don't forget little Andorra. And don't forget little Monaco over here as well. There's the United Kingdom and the Atlantic Ocean over there. We're actually going to visit Brittany in a couple weeks, so if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe because we'll be back in France not too long from now. So where do we go first? I guess we go to Dijon, the capital here. Let me see. Oh, of course, we have to look at the Ducal Palace, Palais des Ducs et des États de Bourgogne. The Palace of the Dukes and that means estate, right? Estates of Burgundy. It also means like state, like les États-Unis where I live. So this is where the Dukes of Burgundy ruled their kingdom. Look at that. Now today, like you could see, it's a museum, but it was once a big glorious palace for les Ducs. There's some tombs here as well. I'm sure of past Dukes of Burgundy. You can see there. Because they weren't princes, I suppose. They were dukes. That's stunning. Very French, isn't it? Very, very French. Let's see. If I show you, I think just the town slideshow, you can get a good view of the architecture here, which is so quaint and pretty. Little carousel there as well. Can you see this very French looking fountain? It's all so beautiful. We'll look at Beaune after this at some point, which is even more pretty, but more of this vibe. This looks like if you try to create like a theme park that was like rural French themed. This looks unreal. It looks too beautiful. Look at this. So quaint. How pretty is that? All the big flags there. I don't know. I see these photos and it reminds me of like Disney's Sleeping Beauty. Even though I know that's supposed to be, I think, German themed, but it's kind of giving that like artistic vibe. I don't know what it is. Do you guys get that? That's one of my favorite movies, but good inspired there. Yeah, that's the feeling I get looking at Dijon and Beaune in a minute. Poking around on Google Earth, I found all kinds of weird stuff. I guess we could start with this fort à la Motte-Giron, which is a big old fortress here, all abandoned, kind of eerie. But then I saw
think next I saw this, Comme le serpent, which I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, but it looks haunted. Like, look at this. There's my brother-in-law coughing. I should drag him in here and make him say something about France, but I won't bother him. He's a little sick anyway, so I'll leave him be. It's a little haunted. I don't know. But then I saw La Porte du Diable, which is like the devil's door, which is even more haunted. Like, what's happening in the woods here? It's ominous. I need someone from Dijon to explain why your woods are so haunted. What's gone on here? What kinds of fairy creatures are living out here that creates all these things like this? Pretty ominous. While we're over here, let's see if I can find it. I might just type it in so that I'm not hunting around for forever, but I need to show you Vercingetorix. I'm not sure if I'm nearby or not. I know it's over here somewhere. Let me just type it, or it should be in my recent searches, right? Let me see. Yeah. No, that's the Saltworks. Stop. We'll go there later. We'll go there in a minute. Oh, it's not in my recent searches. Oh, darn. Goodness. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find it on my own. It's a little town. It's very small. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find it. There's Vesple, where we saw that monastery. What's this? Archaeological site at Fontaine-Salé. Oh, wow. Pretty neat. I wonder if I just type in Vercingetorix, will the statue pop up? Let's see. Vercingetorix statue. Monument, La Roche Blanche. This has to be it. Please? Oh, no. No, it's not. Goodness. What do I do? Okay, first of all, I'm lost. I found it so easily before. I can't believe I can't find it now. It's probably right in front of me. Goodness. Alright, let me cut for a second to find out the name of this tiny town that it's in. Okay, I cut and then realized, wait, why didn't I just type in Alessia where the battle was? And then I found it. I found the tourist site. So that was pretty easy. Over here is Vercingetorix. Dun. Look now, it's over the countryside. Alice Saint-Ren, that's the name of the town. This is a terrible slideshow. I think if I look at the museum, we'll have better pictures. Please. Thank you. Nope, this is not it either, but it's pretty cool. There's those ruins that we saw. Looks like they do reenactments. But let's see, some Gaulish armor here. Ooh. My poor tummy has been rumbling today. I don't know what it is. Let me see. What did I tap on that had great pictures of the statue? Maybe it was this. Remains of the Gallo-Roman town of Alessia. This is the one I saw. The ruins of Alessia here. And, there he is. His very daunting mustache. There's Vercingetorix looking out over once was their home. For the Gauls, at least, before the Romans took over. There he is. That's a better photo up close.
more quaint than Dijon. Look at this. It's like Fantasyland. It's so cute. Look how beautiful this architecture is. And then a bit more modern, right? A bit more Belle Epoque, and then traditional. Isn't that gorgeous? All of the details there in the roofs. Oh my gosh. I love it. This is a beautiful town. Oh, I'm obsessed with this. It's so quaint and very French, isn't it? Very, very French. I remember there was something south of Beaune that I wanted to show you guys, but I don't remember what it was. Was it one of these castles? There's like 500 different chateaus and castles around here. I don't think it was, but that's really beautiful too, isn't it? I highly encourage you to poke around here yourself, because like I said, I found so many slideshows that I was just like mesmerized. What's this? Oh wow. Oh, I remember looking at this now. Some beautiful scenery. Look at that. Oh, wild. Usually not the France you get to see. You get to see all the vineyards and things. Not so much of the wild areas. I don't remember what it was I wanted to show you that was south of Beaune. I just remembered south of Beaune. What was it? We can look at this park here. Speaking of some wild nature. Oh, beautiful and lovely. Big cathedral there. I think that was Vézelay, right? That we were looking at. I think that's Vézelay. Those pictures looked familiar. Oh, great. Oh, very beautiful old castle there, too. It wasn't Chalon-sur-Saône, was it? I don't think so. I really don't remember what it was. I know there was a big rock I needed to show you. That's probably in my recent searches. The big rock, yeah. Maybe that's what it was. Hold on. Try again. There we go. Maybe that's what it was. This big rock. I think so. So this came up when I was looking up sites to see, and it was like, this is like an iconic site in the region. And I'm like, okay, and it's a big old rock. I mean, it's a pretty cool rock. Don't get me wrong. It's a pretty cool rock. But, it is a rock at the end of the day. It's a cute girl there. She agrees. Avez-vous? Some sweet horses also. And the view from up top. A little church there or something. It's a big rock. But there is prehistoric museum. There's a lot to see here. There's some fun things in this museum. Like there's a better picture of the rock. And right here too, big rock. But it's a prehistory. Look at this. Whoa, you wouldn't want to see that coming at you in a dark alley, would you? What is that? Is that a bear? I am not sure. But look at this, friend. Ooh, woolly rhino. Let's see. I like this though. Like, I'm sure these aren't real. But all of the different hominid skulls, you can just see the evolution happen until you get to ours eventually, I suppose. I don't think that's a human skull. Looks a bit too lumpy. Let me see this. Yep, more of the big rock. But with a beautiful vineyard below it. It's just a big old rock. Pretty neat. Maison du Grand Site. Oh yeah,
That's just a house. I think if I remember, because then I started playing around down here and I found some cool castles and stuff, but yeah, look at that cliff right there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find them all. Gosh, I found so many cool slideshows. I know I'm not going to remember where they all are. Why don't we hop over to Besançon real quick? Hold on. Yeah, we're good. Goodness, I don't want to wind up in Switzerland. Besançon, oh my goodness. That took way too long. But it's also a very beautiful town. So it is in the curve of the Doubs, or the boucle, as they say in French. Where's a good photo? Maybe I'll just have to show you from above. Look at this. So this is the old town here in this curve of the river. So there's a lot of stuff here. There's the Citadel, which my brother-in-law said I need to check out or show you guys at least. He was like, yeah, there's some kind of old fortress there or something. It's the Citadel. Pretty neat. Big old fortress up here on the hill. But there's lots of other sights to see here too. For example, the place where Victor Hugo was born. There we go. There's where Victor Hugo was born. Very famous author. There's a chandelier. There's his elephant device. Not quite sure what that was, but it was pretty neat. Little doll there. And a plaque I can't read because it's all quite dirty. Oh, his bust fell over. You better pick that up. His books. His little toy rocking horse when he was a baby. It's a comic. It says, oui, les Hugo ont le troisième petit soir. Victor qui s'appelle, paraît qu'il est pas bien costaud et qu'il survivra pas. C'est pauvre Madame Hugo. Basically, yeah, the Hugos had their third baby last night. His name's Victor. But he's pretty, like, unwell and probably won't survive. So they're like, poor Madame Hugo. But obviously he did survive. My very poor French translation there for you guys. Nearby we can look at that saltworks. Might just tap it since I just tapped it a minute ago. Let's see. Okay, say no. And then it's not going to go, and then I tap it one more time, and then it goes. I don't know why it does that. So here we can see from above what it was supposed to be, right? This big round, but this is all that was built. Let's take a look at it a little closer. It's pretty neat. You see, that's a much better picture than what UNESCO has. How it was supposed to be. This was like the working part, and then this was supposed to be all the village homes. There's those really cool columns. I really like those. Yeah, isn't that cool? So it was supposed to be a big circle, but did not get finished due to the revolution. Revolutionaries were not interested in things like this. Yeah, look how cool these columns are. They look like cogs or something. They look like they move. It's really neat. Alright. I gotta think, what else did I want to show you before I forget? There's Saline-les-Bains, which, like I said, that's where they harvested the salt. The Grande Saline de Saline-les-Bains. Salt processing. Also part of the UNESCO site. All that white gold.
Now, of course, I'm blanking on what I wanted to show you. There are so many things I wanted to show you. I knew you wouldn't remember them all. Let's see. Gotta be careful now that I don't wind up in Switzerland, however. Don't you just hate it when you accidentally wind up in Switzerland? No, I know I wouldn't. I'm just kidding. I need to show you. There's Dijon. Be somewhere up north. The Seine. See, the Seine River actually rises in Bourgogne-Franche-Comté, which, if you don't know, is the river that runs through Paris. The Seine River. I guess I'll just cut it here, even though I feel like I'm forgetting something. But like I said, if I'm like, oh snap, I can't believe I forgot that, I'll just drop it down in the comments below so that you can check it out. Let's tap on one more city before we go. We can look at Belfort, over here by the border with Switzerland. Let's look at Belfort. The residence city are called Belfortin. Let's look. I haven't looked at the slideshow, so I hope it's good. Oh no, it closed on me. Hold on 1 second. It opened up UNESCO again. Could you please reopen Google Earth? Thank you very much. I don't know why it does that. Maybe that was a tablet's way of saying no, not there. Then let's look at Auxerre. Is that how you say it? Auxerre. Residents of Auxerre are referred to as Auxerrois. I like that. Let's look at Auxerre. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. This is an ongoing series, and next we are going back to Colombia, which I'm excited for because, oh my gosh, my Colombian viewership has skyrocketed after I did the video about Bogota. It's my most watched video so far this year, and like 30% of the viewers are Colombians. And I've got so many kind comments from all those Colombians. So I'm very excited to go back to Colombia to see what they all think. So if you're Colombian watching this, you gotta let me know. Very excited to talk about Colombia, as always. Not to mention, we're going back to see some more beautiful landscapes there. Colombia is so pretty up in the mountains. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. Also, please, if you're still awake, give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I always love reading your comments. If you're French, leave it in French to practice my translation skills. I'd appreciate that. Merci beaucoup. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good